What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Cool Colas here, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. But before we get all into the topic for today, I would love it if you did a few things for me. Hit the like button, share button, subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. And then when you are finished, leave me a comment below. That way I can get back to whatever it is that you had to say about the topic. For today's topic, I want to talk about y'all's boy Miles Morales and why he is not an authentic black character. So let's get into it. Listen, y'all, it's time for an intervention. And we need to have a serious intervention about this because there's a lot of you all who go wild and crazy because I made this statement. But I'm going to make it again. Miles Morales is not an authentic black character. And before you go whining and moaning and crying like a wet bitch, and before you start going on a tender rant and poking your lips out like you're Daffy Duck but sassy, I need y'all to really listen to what I'm saying. Miles Morales is not an authentic black character, and I need to give you all the reasons why he is not. But I want to define some things before we actually go into the whole reason why, because it's actually very simple. But I think a lot of people are missing this because they're not looking at tropes from a conceptual standpoint. So when I say authentic, what I really mean is a black character who has not been copied from other characters, specifically other white characters or other non-black characters. I mean a character who is culturally correct. When these characters literally don't come from black origins, it's already bad enough that they're not created by black creators, but it's doubly bad that they're not created by black creators and that they are characters who are just extensions of a character that was already created that is not black. The other thing that we need to talk about is something that I've seen a lot of y'all do whenever I make this argument. A lot of you all conflate the idea that I said that he is not an authentic black character with the idea that I do not like him. I've never said that I do not like Miles Morales as a character. As a matter of fact, I actually think he's kind of cool. However, that does not excuse the whole idea that I do not think that he is authentic. And the idea that I also feel that there are flaws with the way the character was made. And I think that it was also purposefully done. And I want to go into that as well too. One thing that they did was they tried to create a black character without giving authenticity and, in my opinion, effort into making this character consistent in his blackness and in his culture. So to give you an example, there are a lot of different characters who are black, who are consistent in their culture and are authentically black characters. And just to name a few, to give you an example in contrast to Miles Morales, let's talk about it. You have Luke Cage. He is an authentically black character and he is a foundational black American. T'Challa, he is an authentically black character and he is an African from Africa. So these are two examples of characters that are authentic black characters, and also their powers are unique on top of that as well too. These characters are not sharing strong similarities with other characters. Their origin story is not the same as other characters. They don't have similarities in aesthetic as other characters. They are their own people. But when it comes to Miles Morales, it seemed as if the dominant society, when they wrote this character, because let's be real, that's who created Miles Morales, not black people, the dominant society. When they created this character, with the intent to not give authenticity or effort to the way that his culture was crafted or even his race was crafted as well too. Think about it. They wanted him to be an FBA in order to diminish the character, but they also wanted him to be an Afro-Latino as well too, to make it seem like that was the honorable part of his character. So they started mixing the cultures and eventually the races, because at some point his mother was an Afro-Latina. Sometimes his mother was somewhere in between. Sometimes his mother appeared to be a white Latina. So they played around with her race as well too. So now you don't know if Miles Morales really was just fully black at this point or if it was just a cultural mix-up. So they played around with that and they didn't really keep that consistent. I did not like that. Now, some people could say, well, that happens a lot of times, dude. Like, you got people who, they have half of an Afro-Latino culture and they have a half of an African culture, or they have a half of a Black American. I know how you all get. You all like to nitpick at shit because you don't like the fact that I said something that disagrees with the thing that you had already believed. My point, though, is that this character is not consistently represented properly. To elaborate on the cultural piece, he was a character that was used as a pawn for cultural disrespect. I mean, think about it. They had him leaning into the fact that he was Latinx that entire time. And with his mother, again, her race not being very solid, it was almost as if he was embracing Latino culture, and sometimes it wasn't even Afro-Latino culture, while still being FBA. Meanwhile, his FBA name was getting disrespected. As a matter of fact, think about it. They had him taking on his mom's last name, which is why he's Miles Morales. If his name would have been Miles Davis, then he would have been named after a famous foundational Black American jazz player. And also, too, his actual father was a police officer, and we all know that police officers are generally associated with the dominant society and police brutality. So that's associating a black man with that. And also, too, if you look at his dad's name, his dad was technically named after a very famous white supremacist. So it was as if they were using these pieces of Miles Morales' culture to disrespect his FBA side, which is why I said that you can say that that's authentic and this has nothing to do. You can say that my argument has nothing to do with authenticity because you have partially Afro-Latino, partially FBA black people. But my point is that it's more so that he's manipulatively being used as a piece to disrespect some of black culture, which I believe is not authentic, nor do I believe it is healthy. This character is also, in my opinion, someone who I believe was thrown together for the purpose of pacification, which therefore does not make him authentic. And what I mean by that is, there is a reason why a lot of you all are holding on to the fact that Miles Morales is not an authentic black character so tough. And we really need to go into that. The reason why a lot of you go on and on and on and on about Miles Morales being authentic is because there are too many of you all who are out there looking for complacency and pacification. When it comes to the black characters that you've seen in comics, they aren't very plentiful. So you're used to scraping the bottom of the barrel. So anytime you see a new addition, you all are happy to embrace this character as a black character. And then you all are also happy, in even some instances, to include characters who have now been shifted to have a black look but originally were white as black characters as well too. So a lot of you all are just used to scraping the barrel. So when it comes to, authentic black characters, it's authentic in the fact that it was just made or crafted, even if it was in the image of somebody who was not black to begin with. One of the main reasons why Miles Morales is not an authentic black character is because he is a part of a trope that I would call the black carbon copy trope. Now, there are two parts of the black carbon copy trope. One part is the one that you all know as race swapping. I call that the race swapping subtrope. He doesn't fall under that actually though. He falls under the other part, which I would call the mantle passing subtrope. Now let me explain what that means. And I want to start by explaining what a race swap is for those of you all who have been living under a rock. The race swapping trope is when you take a character that was originally one race and swap them into another without changing a thing. In the case of black people and anti-black tropes, that means swapping from a character that is non-black or white to a character that is black and then calling it representation, but you don't change their name, you don't change any of their black backstories, or you don't change anything else about them. You don't change their powers either. You don't change anything about them except maybe their physicality, because it's part of their phenotype with changing their race. Now, what a mantle pass is an advanced version of a race swap. So instead of it being a thing where they change the cosmetic look of the character from being white to black, they also tweak a few things as well too. So maybe this character now has a different name. Maybe this character now has a different backstory. Maybe this character does some moves a little bit different. Some of his moves just aren't the same as the original white character. However, the thing that stays the same is the husk of the character being associated with somebody who it was a white character. So in other words, everything about them has changed except the husk and the aesthetic. A good example of this outside of that would be Captain America, because you had Captain America Steve Rogers, and then later you had Sam Wilson, who was black. Sam Wilson has a different name, he has a different origin story, and even his powers are different because he doesn't have the super soldier serum and all this other stuff. So essentially he would be a mantle pass as well too. There are quite a bit of other characters that fit under this bill as well too, but I just wanted to give an example so that you understood. Another good example, and people have fought me on this one before because it actually goes into this idea of how a mantle pass isn't just as a result of the inward story, but also from an outside abstract appearance. So what I mean by that is, if you look at the Captain America character and you look at the Sam Wilson character, it literally is passing a mantle down. It's literally a thing of hey, I was Captain America, now you are. In the case of the character that I'm about to say, which is Green Lantern, Hal Jordan versus John Stewart. In this example, these two characters did not have a passing of the torch moment. But here's the reason why it's still a mantle pass. A mantle pass works as much inward as it does outward. So although there wasn't a mantle pass with the characters in the way the story was written, there was a mantle pass in the way that the creators created these two different characters. So in other words, they still are attaching John Stewart to the name of Green Lantern. But the first Green Lantern character was a white character named Hal Jordan. So in other words, they're still attaching him to the moniker of Green Lantern instead of giving him his own superhero identity along with a different story and physical look and name and everything else associated. It's a mantle pass because essentially the white supremacist wants to attach these characters that are black to some of their white creations. Sometimes it's out of an insecurity, and sometimes they do it because of the fact that it's a way for them to create lazy representation. And a lot of people just buy into it. Miles Morales essentially fits this bill because he is a mantle pass of Spider-Man. That is Peter Parker Spider-Man. But what's actually very funny about that, and a lot of the other characters that I have talked about as well too, and you can even throw Superman into this category and things like that, although they are mantle passes and race swaps, these characters, like the original superhero that was made, tend to be creations that were scalped from black culture, remixed, repackaged, and sent back to you in the form of the characters that you like. Spider-Man is a great example of this, and I'm going to explain how. The character Spider-Man was bred and remixed and whitewashed and everything else you want to call it from the spider deity known as Anansi, which was in Ghanaian culture. And this is also apparent because there is an actual character called Kwasi Anansi that is in Marvel Comics. And Kwasi Anansi was known as the first Spider-Man, and he actually was a brother. But the character that got popularized and turned into a comic book and all this other stuff actually was the Peter Parker character. So essentially, everything about the Spider-Man that everybody grew up knowing and loving and all this other stuff was a character that was created from scalping black culture and repackaging it and turning it into something different. So what they tend to do after that is take that same character that's white that they done remixed and turn it back black. And because black people don't know their history and don't give a damn to look at their history, they don't go back and say, well, damn, you just did reverse repackaging on me because you started off black, you turned it white, then you turned it black again. And then you made my ass like look and think like, oh, you just gave me representation. This was something that wasn't there when your ass already stole. Like what? So that's why I said that with Miles Morales' character, that's essentially what they did, which is why he is not authentic. If Miles Morales was a character that was not attached to Peter Parker in any type of way, whether it was because they had the same kind of origin aesthetic or origin or superhero name, moniker, whatever you want to call it, then I would say that he was authentic. But because he is so closely attached to Peter Parker, I would call him a Mantle pass because of all of the similarities. Another thing that I want to talk about too, and I know y'all are going to nitpick at it. I'm already ready for it. I really don't care. But when it comes to Miles Morales, another thing that doesn't make him authentic is there is a constant trend of lazy representation by the dominant society and a lack of originality by creating this constant thing of electric black superheroes. Now, some people are going to say, well, Miles Morales, his electricity and his powers were slightly different and all this other shit. But how many black characters do we now have that are electric? I mean, let's really think about it. I'm probably not going to name all of them, but I'm going to name a good bit. You got Black Lightning, you know what I mean? You got Storm. You have Static Shock. You have Juice. You have Black Vulcan. You have all these characters who are electric. Hell, you have Thunder and Lightning. I guess you can count them as well too. You have all these electric black characters. You do not need another black character who has electric powers. And there's a reason why they do this, but we'll talk about that in a different video. We're not going to worry about that so much for this video per se. But my point here is that they could have given this brother, if they really wanted him to be authentic, any other type of power. I mean, where are the black characters that have shadow kinesis? Where are the black characters that can turn into dragons? Where are the black characters that have necromancy? I mean, come on. They have all this type of creativity that they could use, but they choose to do the same shit over and over and over again. And you Negroes just eat it up like this is the best thing smoking. Listen, y'all, he's not authentic. Get over it. All right, y'all, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you all enjoyed what I had to say. And I definitely will have more videos to come, so make sure that you stay tuned. I'll talk to you later. Peace.